The tale you are about to hear is true. Mostly. Well, some of it is true. This is the story of Knotso Clanky of Rocky Creek. It's a little town in Maine, about 75 miles north of Caribou. Knotso is every man. That is to say that Knotso is every man, that is, if every man is about 80 years old, and likes to pretend he is 96, so that everyone will say, 96? Wow, you look so young. Yes, Knotso is every man, that is, if every man likes to take a tall tale and stretch it until it's as tall as good old Sugarloaf Mountain, in the Lakes region of Maine. Well, without further ado, let's travel up Route 95, which starts out in Florida and winds its way up north almost to the top of Maine. Almost 2,000 miles long it is. 95 ends up in a town in Aroostook County, called Holton. But to get to see Knotso Clanky, you gotta go another 106 miles, and then you will be in the town of Rocky Creek. About 15 miles from the Canadian border. This is Basil Nightingale for Bill Russo's Short Story Theatre. Now that we have arrived in Rocky Creek, let me take you to Knotso Clanky's house. It is not far. It's on Main Street. Along with his good wife, Mrs. Clanky, Knotso lives in an apartment on the 3rd floor, above Daigle's drugstore. It is the biggest building in town. It was built of solid brick, and tops out at 4 stories high. As we enter his home, Knotso is entertaining a few friends. He's telling them about that time in the Great Northwoods Forest where he met up with Bigfoot. Yes, the legendary creature is real, at least that's the way Knotso tells it. Let's go inside.
Hey Knotso, did you really see Bigfoot?
Yep, I saw Bigfoot. It's a fact, don't you know? I saw Bigfoot many times. Yep, almost got to be friends with him till I insulted him. Yeah, you don't want to make a Bigfoot mad, I'll tell you that. I used to see him at the edge of town. Bigfoot liked to come down to the river just at sunset, don't you know, when all the people was just starting to turn on their lights. Yeah, Bigfoot was amazed at the lights of town. He thought they were stars that was captured by airplanes and brought down to the earth. He was pretty smart, though, I'll tell you that. But he never understood about electricity. You're probably wondering how I know that he thought they were stars. He told me. That's how. Yep, he could talk. Well, it was at the end of a typical long and snowy winter up here in Aroostook County, at the very top of the United States. The snow on the mountains was piled up as high as the trees. But with the coming of spring and the warm weather, it was melting fast. It was melting so fast that the rivers were swelling up, about ready to overflow and flood out the town, don't you know? The lumber companies was hiring hundreds of seasonal workers to cut down thousands of trees in the St. John Valley and then roll them up into the river, where they could float down to Madawaska and arrive at the Great Northern Paper Company and get chopped up into little pieces. Then them little pieces would get chopped up into even smaller pieces till they became paper. Yeah. The Great Northern Paper Company supplied about 20% of all of the paper used in the newspapers of the United States. And back then, when everybody got the paper brought to their doorstep every morning, that was a lot of paper, don't you know? Well, sir, there was so many logs floating in the river that day that you could walk right across the river on top of the logs, just like if it was a bridge right into Canada. Them logs was jammed up so tight you could walk across the river just like it was a paved road. Yeah. Well, I got there, crossed on the other side into Canada, and it looked just like Aroostook County. Yeah. Mostly nothing but trees as far as the eye could see. There wasn't many people living in the area back then, and in fact, they still ain't. Madawaska, the biggest city up in that part of the county, had less than 5,000 people in it, and today it's only got about 3,000. It's the kids, don't you know? The kids. Uh, they grow up and they don't want to be stuck in a tiny town up in the frozen north. So they get down to Boston or Providence and they become city folks. And all the towns up in the county keep on getting smaller and smaller. But anyways, getting back to the story. I walked over the logs and into Canada, and I was walking around when I spotted what looked like a rough lean-to. Yeah, about 8 or 10 logs was drugged up to the side of a large square rock and set against the rock at an angle, don't you know? And then branches and brush was wedged around them to make a pretty good little shelter. Well, I walked carefully over to it, making sure that there was no hibernating bear inside that was gonna jump out at me. I peeked in and saw that it was empty. Well, not completely empty. They was piles of hay. One pile was as big as the pillow on my own bed. The hay was dark brown and it was long. Some of it was more than 1 foot long, and it was all wound up into a great big ball, don't you know, that was pretty soft and spongy. Well, there was no question in my mind somebody or something had rolled up all that coarse brown hair into a pillow for a nighttime sleeping. Well, I went outside to do a little more checking, and I slipped on a patch of ice that had not yet melted. Down I went kerplunk and landed right on my keister, don't you know? What's worse was that my glasses fell off and I couldn't find them. They must have fallen off on the snow piles in one of them snow piles that hadn't yet melted. Well, I'll tell you, without them specs, don't you know, my vision was pretty bad. I could see light and I could see dark, but not a whole lot more. So I made my way back to the lean-to to collect my thoughts when all of a sudden someone said, "Are you hurt?" No, I ain't hurt except I lost my glasses. I can't see too good without them. Where you lose glasses, where you lose glasses. Well, I lost them out there by that big pile of snow next to that patch of ice. I slipped on the ice and my glasses fell off. They got to be right around there, but I just can't see them. We'll go out in a minute and look for them, but was just ready to have food. Here, you have. Well, he handed me something that felt like a chunk of wood, don't you know? I took a bite out of it and it was sour. It was sour and bitter and crunchy. So I says, What in the name of Paul Bunyan is this stuff? It is called rhubarb. You will get used to it. Rhubarb, good for you. It grows in spring. Only thing can eat for a long time till berries start to grow. You mean you live here in the woods all the time? Don't you live in town? Long time. Once, when young, man, woman owned me, kept me in shed, gave me food, but did not like me. Had two little boys who liked me. Boys taught me everything, how to talk, where to get food. I stayed with them long time, got big, too big. Mother and father scared of me, sent me away, throw me away, send me to woods. Came to woods, that's where now live, in woods. Well, that stranger and me talked for more than an hour. And after that, he said he would get my glasses, but as soon as he did, he was going to have to leave. So I asked him, why are you going to have to leave? I big, I ugly, I hairy, I scary. That's what lady said when kicked me out. Well, mister, I don't care what you look like, mister. You done me a big favor today, that's for sure. So please go find my glasses and don't you worry none, mister. I won't care what you look like. So he went outside and he found my glasses, and I put them on and I took a look, and guess what? He was about 8 feet tall, all covered in hair, and he looked more like an ape than a man. Yep, Mister was, in fact, Bigfoot. Well, Bigfoot and me got to be pretty good friends, and I even invited him up to the house, don't you know? I sneaked him into the house one day, right into this living room here where we are now. Everybody else was at the state fair, don't you know? So nobody saw him. And he was sitting down on my couch and we was talking away. And now I always call him Mister, just Mister. Yeah, just like he was any other guy I might have seen walking around town. Yeah. Now I think part of the reason that he liked me was because my face is not bare like most of the men in town and all the women, don't you know? Yeah, I got a pretty good sized mustache going for me. and I think that it would take first prize in a mustache contest, if we ever had one up here in Maine. Well, anyways, we were sitting down on the couch talking about this and talking about that, and I said, Mister, I've been knowing you pretty long time now, so instead of calling you Mister, I think I should call you by your name. So you call me by my name, I'll call you by yours, and you can just call me Knotso. That's my name, Knotso. And I'll just call you Bigfoot. Well, sir, just as soon as I said it, I knew it was a big mistake. He got mad. He got up from sitting on that couch and he started walking towards the door, don't you know. I could see he was leaving, and I said, "What's the matter? What's the matter, Bigfoot?" Well, don't you know, he turned around and he said in that deep voice of his, "Bigfoot, I just don't like it. That's what. How'd you like it if I called you Sagebrush? Bigfoot, Bigfoot. They're not that big anyways. They're not that big." Well, that was the last time I saw Bigfoot. Ain't nobody else ever seen him since either. That's the truth. I'm pretty sure that he went back to Canada. Yeah, hiding up in the big north woods. Yeah. Well, so here's a word of advice for anybody who is searching for Bigfoot. Yeah. Don't matter where you are, Bridgewater Triangle, up at the top of the United States in Aroostook County, Maine, or maybe over there in Minnesota, or maybe Washington State, or wherever. If you see Bigfoot, if you ever see Bigfoot, just don't go calling him Bigfoot, because Bigfoot don't like it. That's why.
You've been listening to Knotso Clanky, and his account of meeting the legendary creature that some people call Bigfoot. But not so Clanky. Knotso told me that if he ever sees Bigfoot again, the only name he will give to the big hairy creature is Mr. This is Basil Nightingale speaking for our producer and director Bill Russo, saying thanks for listening, and stay tuned to this channel for further tales of Knotso Clanky, the 80-year-old guy, who likes to pretend he is 96. That's it for today. Come back again soon. Won't you?